Hey, Bob. Hey, so let's talk. I want to talk about faith, hope, and love. And because when we left off, you had come to USC. You graduated, obviously, and you went off to start appearing in movies. But you kind of it seems to me like you became an independent filmmaker, which I think is just amazing.
What happened was I for the next 10 years I did probably 20 or 30 different TV shows and movies, everything from Who's the Boss, Hotel, 21 Jump Street, Women in Red, Back to the Future, a bunch of stuff like that, and The Life of Aristotle Onassis, and just some really great programs. But I felt, even when I was back in film school, the reason I was doing that was I knew ultimately I was going to write and produce and direct. And right around at about 10 years after I got out of school, there was a movie that came out called The Brothers McMullen, and then Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It. And I looked at those and I thought, I think I can do that. And I wasn't sure, but I thought, I think I've done this long enough. I'd sold about 4 screenplays to the studios too. And the frustration there was they would pay me for it. It would go into development. And then you were at the mercy of whether they fired the president from the studio, which was always turning over. And once they fired the president, he got rid of all the old stuff. And I thought, man, I'm pouring myself into these scripts and they're not getting made. What's the point of this? So I wrote a film called Do You Want to Dance, based on my friendship with a Greek priest named Father Chris Karhoulas. And I went out and raised the money for it and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I had no idea then if I could do it. Not only that, writing it to the point where people would like it, but also I danced in the film and I had no idea whether I could pull that off. And we finished the film. It took forever because these low budget independent films, you're just always scrambling for everything. And we screened the film in Chicago for 1,000 people. It was 1,000 Greeks, or people that were really into the Greek community there. And I remember at the end of it, I went to get up on stage, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see the entire audience standing up and giving a standing ovation. I just never expected. It was one of the highlight moments of my life because it really, beyond just them saying, hey, we like the movie, it really verified for me that moment, okay, you can do this. And then after that, things got a little crazy because that was one of the highlights, as I said. And the next night we went back to Los Angeles, down in Westwood. We were screening it for all the studios, Columbia, Paramount, just everybody. And we had Chris Columbus, who wrote Home Alone. He loved the film. And he introduced it, and he had Fox come to watch it, and he was introducing the film. And about 10 minutes into the screening of this film, which my whole life was riding on, the sound of the film started to go out. And no one knew what was going on. Unfortunately, I was sitting in the middle of the theater. Never thought anything was going to go wrong, of course. Ran up to the projection booth, and the light bulb that goes through the film that creates the sound was burning out, and they didn't have another one. And it was like watching a slow dissolve to the end of your professional life.
Oh man.
It's one of the hardest moments of my life. They eventually found a light bulb, but that began one of the hardest, probably 2 or 3 years of my life, because all the studios passed on it. And they said, oh, the sound's not good. You keep going, oh. It was, you're not, you just couldn't talk. Once the bell was rung, you couldn't unring it. And then I went back. At one point, everyone had passed, and it was right during Holy Week. And I remember praying, and I said to God, there was one company left that didn't show up that night. And they said, hey, we're thinking about taking this film to the Cannes Film Festival. And they said, we're wringing our hands. They had seen another screening of it. And I went back home and I prayed and I said, God, this is it. I'm wiped out. I was exhausted. I put everything into it and I thought this was the end. And I said, but back when I was in that church 10 years ago, I thought we had an agreement. And I thought, well, maybe this is the end then. And about a half hour later, the phone rang. It was my producing partner on that film. And he said, do we have a lawyer? And I said, I don't know. Why? Who's asking? And he goes, don't look up, don't look down. I think Largo's going to buy the film for foreign rights. And they did. We went to Cannes. It wasn't one of those things like the world turned in our favor overnight. But more than anything, God answered my question that day. And I never looked back after that. Even through bad times, I never looked back because God answered. He reaffirmed the answer to me, which was, this is what I want you to do with your life. And we came back after the Cannes Film Festival. They sold some foreign rights that allowed us to license the music for the film, which meant I could sell it. And when we came back from Cannes, it was this rocky ride. And I was like, oh my God, can anything else go wrong? And we got home and we were living with my mom at the time. That's how, I mean, every dollar was going into this film. And my wife was behind my mother after we got home, and she's going like this with a thumb up. And I'm like, oh yeah, thank God we got home, because that was a rough ride. And she keeps going like that. And eventually I look, I go, what? And she said, I just took a pregnancy test. I'm pregnant. And long story short, Bob, you know, part of the answer, what the punchline of this is, 2 weeks later, the ambulance is at our house. I'm freaked out because I thought maybe it was my mother. It turns out it was my wife. We rushed to the hospital. She flipped an ovary. It was okay, but it was painful. But in the process, the doctor is scanning her tummy, and I see these 2 sacs. And I'm thinking, oh, no, please, God, no. I'm just still trying to process this whole movie thing. And I said, finally, is that twins? He goes, oh, yeah, it's twins. He goes, I'm trying to, and he scrolls over and he goes, I'm trying to figure out what this is. And sure enough, it was a third one. It was triplets.
Oh, wow.
12
well,
weeks.
I knew that. I know your children. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that experience. My God.
And 12 weeks into it, Bobby, she went into labor. And so we were it was one of the hardest periods of my life, because she then went into labor at 12 weeks. And the doctor said, look, you're worried about these 3 kids dying. I'm telling you, I'm worried about you having 3 invalids born, and it'll change your life forever. And that's what we're dealing with here. And they were advising us to abort 1 or 2 of them. And so and I don't say this with any bravado, I say it as somebody who was scared to death. Both my wife and I, we told them, no, we're going to stick with it. Because thank God, that priest I made the movie with, Juan had said something to me once. We were talking about aborting children once, and I said, well, would you have done it if this had happened to you? Because somebody we knew had aborted. And he said, no, my marriage could survive it. And I remember thinking, whatever it is, my marriage could. We were only a couple of years into our marriage, but I felt like my wife and I, whatever it was, we were going to survive it. So, and then fortunately, as I posted on the Facebook group yesterday, I posted a picture of our 3 boys. My wife went to 35 weeks by the grace of God. The kids were born, and they went on to be scholars and athletes, and but because of that, Bob, I stopped acting for 15 years, because once God gave me those kids, there was no way I was going to mess that up. I read above my computer, there's an icon of Christ. There was no way, Bob, I was going to mess that up. And if it meant putting an end to my career, and that's when I started my company, LNS Multimedia, and started making products, Greek for Kids and the Saints and all these different products. And I thought, whatever it is, but I'm not going to be away from these kids. And when they were sophomores in high school, I made Christmas with the Karountzoses right here.
You know, that, by the way, folks, that's on Netflix. That is such a fun movie.
Amazon Prime.
I'm sorry, not on Netflix. It's on Prime. I meant to say Prime, because I watched it last night. I watched it last night, and I just thought, I'd never watched it before. And I just thought, God, what a fun movie. I mean, it is, you can really see the genesis of the themes well, I think the themes that kind of resonate throughout your life, but also the themes that resonate through your movies too.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And because you could see it, you could see, oh, well, this is, a natural transition to faith, hope, and love. I mean, you could just see, you could see that was the genesis, I think. I don't know, maybe not, but
you're right. That wasn't what happened when I finished Christmas with the Carountzoses. I came home that night and my son George had written a note and put it on the steps and said, "Are you done yet?" And they were sophomores in high school. And so I went upstairs and I told my wife, I said, "I'm not going to make another movie until they're in college." Because that's your son or your child telling you, "Hey, I need you around." And I was only gone, and I was there every night for 2 weeks. I'd come home after filming, but you're distracted because you're thinking about this film. I could barely sleep because I hadn't done it for 15 years. So I was so anxious. But and then also, as you know from watching the film, I played 2 roles in that film. And so playing Telly was a risk. And I wasn't sure if I could pull it off. And so I wasn't sure until we got into the screenings later on and hearing everybody laugh. And I thought, okay, got through that. But I stopped, I didn't act again until they were all in college, their freshman year. And the minute they were in college, then I started pre-production on Faith, Hope, and Love and went back to doing it.
I mean, Faith, Hope, and Love just resonated with our entire community at church. And I think with probably a lot of communities throughout the United States, you know, or really anywhere that screened it. But, you know, we went to see it at the movie theater over at the Irvine Spectrum, and it was just so wonderful to see it there. And, you know, on the big screen, because you honored me by letting me have a pre-screening of it before the music was added at Traffic. And I mean, that was just one. Thank you so much, by the way. But I just love it, you know. And it's still, you know, I watched it on Netflix just recently, and I know the kids have watched it again, and it just wonderful. And folks, if you guys are out there listening and watching this, our talk with Robert Krantz, that movie's available on Netflix. You should definitely see it, Faith, Hope, and Love. But I could talk Faith, Hope, and Love with you forever, really. But the thing that really kind of caught me was you started a community page on Facebook.
Right.
And the reason I called Bob is I listened to, on that community page, you had a message, and I was feeling a little kind of tired that day, and it just kind of felt like a lot of things were coming at me. And I listened to your message, and I thought, wow, I got to give this guy a call. I haven't talked to him probably in 6 months, but got to give him a call and just say, wow, this is incredible. So what was happening to you during the screening of the film that I think kind of propelled you into creating this community?
What happened was this, Bob. I started screening that film about a year ago, and every screening would end. Somebody came up and said to me after one of the first screenings, they were introducing it, they had seen the film, my friend George Bellows from Pittsburgh. And as he was introducing the film, he said, after this film, you're going to want to go up and give this guy a big hug. And I remember thinking, really? I wonder what that really means. And after every screening, that's what happens. Because there's something in that film. You and I, as Greek Orthodox would say, it's the Holy Spirit. And I believe that. There's only so much, whatever writing, acting, directing, that efforts I put into a film. But there was something that God put into this film. And it's touched people in a way that to this day, a year later, I will get emails, posts, phone calls, letters from people saying how much this movie affected them. It gave them hope. And there was so many thousands of those throughout the world that, and there was 2 things. One, they would say how much it affected them, how much it meant to them, how much it gave them hope. And then the second thing was they said, we're tired of the movies that Hollywood is making. We wish there were more of these. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't just 1 or 2 people. These aren't just my friends. This is thousands and thousands of people. And so I started this group called the Faith, Hope, and Love Community. It's a Facebook group, and which anyone can join. And the reason I started it was that I knew that people wanted change. They wanted something that they could go to with their yaya and papu, their kids, their grandkids, whoever it was, and not be embarrassed, but still enjoy it. Because the truth is, a lot of these faith-based or inspirational films are boring. And I think what God put me here for, without sounding like a jerk, I think this is what God put me here for, is to take this genre, the faith-based genre, and make it more entertaining, more palatable. Don't hammer people over the head. No one wants to get hammered over the head. And we try and make the religious part of it as digestible as possible. And then the second thing is to make it interesting and entertaining. And that's what I found. Kids from 90 to grandparents 90 have gotten so much out of it. And so we started this Facebook group. We're almost at 2,000 within a couple of weeks. And the goal is, and we'll see, that's what I said in this video, we will see, because I think this is something that is meant to be. But we want to grow that group into a large group, because that's when you can create change. When you have hundreds of thousands or millions of people following you, and the studio sees that, they don't care what the subject matter is. They know that you have a group of people following you and will follow you. And they will then begin to help you make these films. We have to make these things on a tiny budget. We have to make them with limited advertising money. But once they start to see you have a following, they will give you advertising money. They will give you a big budget, which means you can hire more stars and all that stuff, and have more advertising money. And that is when change will happen. And I think, Bob, as sure as I'm sitting here talking to you, I think within a period of time, I don't know what that period of time would be, I think that's what's going to happen. I think this group is going to grow into a large group, because I think people like yourself, as I said in that video, the video Bob's referring to is, if you go to the Faith, Hope, and Love community on Facebook group, there's a video right at the beginning where I talk about this. And I think there's so many people out there that just want something different from the movies. They don't want car crashes. They don't want swearing. They don't want violence. They don't want 2 to 6. They just want something that is entertaining and uplifting, and that they don't get embarrassed by. And I think that's what God put me here to do.
Well, I got to say, Faith, Hope, and Love it's a message movie, but it's also an entertaining message movie. The dance, I mean, you have, I think her name is Peta
Murgatroyd from Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, from Dancing with the Stars in that movie. And, you know, she's phenomenal. You're phenomenal in it too. You know, your dancing is just incredible too. But it's a very it's a very fun, family-oriented movie. And you know, you were able to attract, you know, actors that are so recognizable, which kind of tells me that there's actors out there that want to be in films that you leave the theater uplifted. You know, your brain hasn't been bombarded with negative emotions and with just sights and sounds that are literally out of this world. Yeah. But something that is a little bit more down to earth. And you know, we're Greek. We love to dance. It doesn't matter what kind of dancing it is. And it just, no, it just blew me away. And I think it did everybody here. I know my sister and me are here. My friends are here. They've all seen it and just love it. But it's heartwarming to know that there are actors in Hollywood that want to perform in these independently created movies that have good messages.
Being a typical Greek, though, Bob, the minute I knew, oh, wow, we got a hit movie and everyone really likes it, the minute that happened, being a typical Greek, I thought, oh, man, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this again.
So what? Well, I want to talk about that, too, if you can. I don't want you to talk about something, but you know, what's next?
I finished the screenplay. I'm probably 99% done with it. And again, it's just the Greek in me. I really swear it is. I wrote a book called Falling in Love with Sophia. The screenplay was done for it. Everything in my brain told me, okay, go make that movie next. But I went and I was working out and I started thinking about this idea. And it was from a conversation I had. And the conversation went like this. There was a woman who had triplets like I did. And we were talking, and she said, how old are yours? I said, oh, they're 21 now. I said, how old are yours? She said, oh, they're 3 years older. They were very young. And I said, oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't think I could go back to those days. I said, well, I could go back maybe for a week. I could go back. So I was driving home, and I thought, wow, wouldn't that be a great movie? And this is what the basic one line of the movie is. What if you could go back and you had to relive 1 week of your life? Which week would it be? And I started thinking of it, and I came up with a concept of movie. It took me 6 months to write it, and which is part torture, part fun. But I finished it, and so now we're just kind of waiting for this COVID situation to end. My guess is we'll start filming it in January, February, and so I'm using this time, which as you get older, it gets tougher. But I'm using this time to get physically ready because there's more dancing in it. Of course, you want the next one to be bigger and better and everything else. And so, you know, Bob, let me tell you this. When I first started acting, I would get the script. I'd see my 5 or 6 scenes or whatever it was, show up on the set. I'd have a trailer. They were excited when I walked on the set. I'd say my lines and I'd go home. Now, and I'm doing all these different jobs, and you know, it's a load. So I've got to start preparing months and months and months in advance. And so right now, physically, I'm preparing to get ready for a film probably in January or February. So I can't be eating the food you're making, Bob.
Hey, look, I can't. I was talking to a friend of mine in Greece this morning, and she said, you have to have a exercising with Creek people episode after this. So
yeah, there I am. I did my running this morning and my weightlifting yesterday, so I'm getting there. But I've already been mad at it for about over 3 months, and so it'll take about another 6 to get to where I want to be.
Well, you know, I keep asking creative people, what do you do? What do you do during COVID? Has it made you more creative? Does it kind of lend itself to you staying home in front of a typewriter? What do you kids use these days? A computer. Doesn't in front of a computer and start typing or creating.
No, what it did was it you know, you could use it as an excuse. Oh man, the world shut down. Or you could use it to get ready. And everything in my body told me, do not waste this time, get ready. And so I started picking out all the music, getting our budget together, and then preparing all our social media stuff and really using this time to get myself, because what happens is usually I wait to the end, I start getting physically ready for the dance stuff. And then it's just kind of crazy rushing at the end. And so this time I thought, no, I want to be more prepared. And so I use this time to get as prepared as possible.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you know, I could talk to you about this kind of love movie making. I love what you do. I can talk about it forever, but I know you, you know, we've been talking for about an hour, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know Christina had to go because she's shooting a music video, but but I'll send you some links to some of the music that she's performed here, which I just think is
great.
Cool. That's on YouTube. She just did a wonderful job. And so any last words from you before we sign off? Anything you want to add?
It was a great way to spend a Saturday morning. And for those that don't know, Bob and I, every time Bob and I would get together, we'd have, even if he was dropping something off or picking something up, we would have a half-hour conversation about who knows what. 2 great Greek philosophers talking to each other.
But look at all the world problems we solved. So
you got a great sister who I adore. I think Kelly's the best.
Kelly, you want to say hello?
Kelly,
want to be on screen. She's back here. But
she's the absolute one of the kindest people I know.
Hey, when I end the broadcast, don't hang up. Kelly wants to say hello, but we'll okay. But I'm just going to end the broadcast in a second. I'm going to say I'm going to thank you to Chef George. Thank you to Esperanto Restaurant. Thank you to George. Bee just kind of came by, big bumblebee, and everybody panicked. Thank you. Thank you to George Sabravlakis, Afroso Sabravlakis, for setting all this up. Christina Apostolopoulos, who was our musical guest. Thank you so much, Christina. You always provide such great music for us. And of course, filmmaker, writer, actor, producer, star of Faith, Hope, and Love, which is available on Netflix, Bob Krantz. I love you, brother. Thank you so much for being with us, and goodbye to everybody.